So Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan's, and I'm going to have more to say about this because I didn't get to see the whole thing. I've only watched the first half so far. And, well, let's just get right to it. They're talking about climate change.
But, the other thing that I would do, and, you got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record. And we can create millions of good-paying jobs transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency.
So first of all, he's 100% wrong about that. The last 10 years have not been the hottest on record. It's when you decide to start keeping the records. So yeah, if you go back in the records, a wink of an eye in if you go back 5 minutes, yeah, because that's what they do. When did they start keeping these records? The Earth has been around for 4 billion years, right? When did they start keeping these records? Well, Joe Rogan actually pushes back on Bernie on this, right? So you always hear that. Here's Joe. Good tip of the hat for Joe.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We can both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves.
Yeah, and for most of the planet's history, it's been way hotter than it is right now. So this idea that the last 10 years are the hottest on record, it's just when they started keeping records. It's not the history of the planet. It's been way hotter most of our planet's history. Did you know that? So that whole thing of the last 10 years are the hottest on record, that's just the records that humans decided to start keeping. That plays into their climate change agenda. But if you go back to ice cores and you look at, well, Joe's going to say.
And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period.
So the Washington Post, so there was the scientist, the Washington Post did a story saying that they went back over the last 485 million years, which again is a short period of time but we're in a cooling phase. It's been way hotter over the last 500 million years on Earth, on average, than it is right now. And he's going to talk about that.
That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's the surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
yeah.
I didn't read that article. You mean the one article written in the Washington Post that was a reprint from, I think, Science Magazine? The one article that actually debunks all the stuff that you've been saying? You didn't have time to read it? It only takes 5 minutes. That one article, the most informative, the biggest study that the scientists have ever done, you didn't have time to read it? It takes 5 minutes. Of course you didn't, because it goes against your narrative. Of course you didn't read it. Here we go.
The scientists who are out there, I think.
I know, but there's a lot of money involved in that too, Bernie. That's part of the problem. There's a lot of money involved in this whole climate change emergency issue, and there's a lot of control. And that's a big part of this problem. Not only that.
That if you have a counter narrative to the climate change establishment agenda, you get defunded. Just like look what they did to people who were telling the truth about COVID. Look what they did to those doctors. Those doctors got disbarred. They got kicked off. They got their credentials taken away. Look what happened to Dr. Pierre Corey. Look what happened to Mary Talley. Look what happened to virologists. Who do we have on? Dr. Malone. Look what they did to all those people. They smeared them, slandered them. People got kicked. They passed laws in California making doctors not prescribe certain medicines because that's how controlled they are. So that's what he's talking about. A lot of money. And so just like they have the control of doctors, they have the control of climate scientists. Who funds them?
Well, it's interesting, all the demands that they put on people. And like gardeners, what are they doing here in the state of California to gardeners?
Yeah, they're not banning private jet travel. They're banning gas-powered leaf blowers. And who does that help? Well, that helps the big companies because they have money to replace all their stuff. And it's the small companies that get squeezed out. So so there's a lot of money in climate change. A lot. Well, that movie, Michael Moore's movie, the last one that he produced about the climate change, it talked about all the money that's involved in it.
if we're just talking about primarily carbon and carbon footprint, what are we going to do about China? Because China is like, what percentage of
they are the major polluter right now in terms of carbon. We're number 2. We used to be 1. They're number 1 right now.
I think they have an enormous percent of the global. I think they're
number 1. I don't know what
very high. It's very high.
It's not an American issue. It is.
Well, the number 1 organization, yes, China, again, releasing most of the CO, but the U.S. military, right? And when are they going to say, let's close down our 900 military bases? There's no organization that emits more carbon than the U.S. military. Okay.
A global issue. And all I can tell you is that we are, in my view, going to see more extreme weather disturbances in the coming years than we have ever. And we're seeing them right now.
Right, but scientists don't agree. Well, this is where it gets confusing. Because scientists that are in agreement, there's all these entanglements. Whenever someone's discussing something, whether it's economics or whether it's health issues or pharmaceutical drugs, there's financial entanglements. I think we both agree with that, right?
Yep.
And I think this is part of the issue with this whole climate change emergency as well, because it's not just that we could all agree pollution is a major factor. It's a huge issue in the world today. We could all agree with that, right? I think one of the things that we have to recognize is that whenever there's an issue that everyone can agree on, you're going to have a bunch of people that capitalize on that issue and they look to gain more money. They have financial issues that they push forward in order to capitalize on this issue, but then also power and control. These things like they're trying to institute in the UK where they have these 15-minute cities, this concept where you're not allowed to travel. They'll be able to look at your carbon footprint. See, that's the problem. The problem is giving people that are in power, these people that we've all discussed that have so much money and so much control over our societies, multinational corporations, giving them more control over citizens. And this is a vehicle for that. And this is what's dangerous about this whole climate change emergency, because it allows these fucking creeps that have been controlling people and controlling what you do and what you say and how you spend your money with people that already live in check to check, and you put additional constraints on them and you make them even more scared. And then you put additional measures where you can look at their carbon footprint, you can look at the amount they travel, put a carbon tax on these people, let's figure out how to extract more money from them. That's what bothers me about this climate change emergency. Not that we can all agree pollution is a terrible thing. Everyone should agree to that. The beautiful earth that sustains us and all life on this planet is being poisoned as we speak. We're killing all the fish in the ocean and sucking them out in giant numbers. 94% of all the big fish that are in the ocean are gone over the last, whatever it is.
When you go to war against nature, you lose.
Yeah, because you're part of nature.
Loses. Exactly
but
right.
We're worshiping the almighty dollar above the mother.
You asked me when I ran for president, one of the interesting, it's something else to run for president because you get around, you meet all kinds of people, and you learn all kinds of things. And one of the things that I did, we went to met with a lot of Native Americans. And one of the reasons is, their tradition was going from way back, respect for nature. That they understood way back when, that you kill off all of the buffalo, you ain't going to have nothing to eat, right?
Right.
They understood that. And you understand that you live in harmony with nature, which is, I think, what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
And if you lose that harmony, I worry about the...
So I don't know if you noticed what happened there. Bernie just pivoted. He pivoted to respect for nature. Instead of climate change is real, the last 10 years are the hottest. I didn't read that study. I don't know about that. Joe Rogan came at him with actual facts that you're not going to hear on corporate news. And he pushed back on him, and Bernie immediately tried to pivot. And he's pivoting. That's what he's doing. That's what this is called. He didn't push back on Joe Rogan, saying, no, the scientists aren't corrupted. No, the funding of the science is a problem. He didn't push back at him about that article he never even heard of. Really? I know about that article. I covered it. And he doesn't know about it? I bet he does. And this is him pivoting.
Future of humanity in general.
Which is the problem with financial competitiveness. When you put that almighty dollar above all else,
that's right.
Then all you think about, and you're only alive for 100 years, so it's just hit the gas. Hit the gas for 100 years, and who gives a shit what happens after I'm gone? I'm going to die with the most toys. Yay, I win in the dirt.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that is, which takes us to another issue.
Okay.
And that is artificial intelligence.
Okay. And he just pivoted away from that. He just pivoted right away from that. Thank God Joe Rogan pushed back at him. Hey, scientists don't agree on this. Hey, did you see the study that was in the front page of the Washington Post? And here is that study. Scientists have captured Earth's climate over the last 485 million years. Here's the surprising place that we stand now. The surprising place that we stand now is here's the heat. Here's the average temperature of the Earth over the last 485 years. Biggest study they've ever done. Here's where we are now. So now if you look, most of the history of over the last 485 million years, it's been hotter. So when Joe Rogan says we're actually in a cooling phase, that's because we're actually in a cooling phase. And you've been lied to. This is, so here, I'll give it even, this is where we are now. And that is, if you draw a straight line across, it's been hotter for over the last 485 million years than it is right now. Almost every point. Let's see. So global mean surface. So this is what this is. So, yeah, it's cooler now. Isn't that amazing? So most of the history over the last 485 million years has been hotter than it is right now. This is according to the Washington Post. And what they point is, you see this little red line that goes up? That's what they're screaming about. How it's getting hotter. Well, look at the fluctuations just over the last 485. Look at the fluctuations in the temperature. And most of the period of time hotter than it is now. And so now they're saying, oh my God, look. So this is from the Washington Post. The timeline published Thursday in the journal Science is the most rigorous reconstruction of Earth's past temperatures ever produced. Created by combining more than 150,000 pieces of fossil evidence with state-of-the-art climate models, it shows the intimate link between carbon dioxide and global temperatures and reveals that the world was in a much warmer state for most of the history of complex animal life. At its hottest, the study suggests the Earth's average temperature reached 96.8 degrees Fahrenheit, far higher than the historic 58 degrees Fahrenheit the planet hit last year. So the Earth's average temperature at one point was 96 degrees. Now it's only 56 degrees, 58 degrees. It's the hottest 10 years on record. Yeah, when did you start keeping those records? When did you start so they on record they make it sound like it's the history of the Earth. It's not. It's when they started keeping those records, which was in the late 1800s, which, by the way, is that's all debated. Those records are debated. So good for Joe Rogan for knowing about this and for pushing back on him. Fantastic. And it's nice to see Bernie pivot away as soon as he could. Yeah, I didn't read that study. Oh, you didn't? Really? Because Jagoff Jimmy Dore read it. And I did a story on it when it came out. You didn't know about this? Really? You have a staff, you're a senator, you have a staff of 30 people probably on your staff, and nobody told you about this? Nobody said, hey, did you see the front page of the Washington Post? Yeah, they say we're in a cooling period. So see how this red mark goes up a little, right? That's what they're talking about. This is what they're talking about. This is, oh my God, it's getting hotter. That's what they're talking about. So after living through Russiagate, after living through Ukraine, after living through COVID, I don't trust any of this stuff. This climate change hysteria. Don't trust it, especially when the people who are screaming the loudest about it are flying around on private jets. One private jet flight emits more carbon than my car does in my lifetime. And their solution is never to ban private jet travel. The solution is always something I got to do. I got to get an electric stove. I got to get an electric. By the way, that doesn't cut down on because you got to make the energy somewhere. You're just changing where the carbon gets emitted. From the back of my tailpipe or at the energy plant. Way to go, Joe Rogan. Hey, are prescription drug prices just too high? It doesn't make sense. The same medications cost a fraction of the price in other countries, yet here in the United States, people are skipping the meds they need because they can't afford them. And that's not right. And that's why President Trump recently signed a new executive order to lower the cost of prescription drugs. It's a big move, and it shows that change is coming. But here's the reality. These kinds of policy changes take time, but All Family Pharmacy is not waiting. They're taking action now, giving you a 20% discount on all medications through June 30th to support this mission and help Americans get access today. You can order everything from antibiotics, ivermectin, and hydroxychloroquine to methylene blue and your daily maintenance meds. Over 200 medications available, no insurance needed, doctor's prescriptions included. Shipped fast and direct to your door. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/door and use promo code DOOR20 to get 20% off. This is real healthcare, lower prices, better access, and no waiting around. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/door and use code DOOR20 to get 20% off. Let's take our health into our own hands and make America healthy again. Come see us live on tour in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Rutherford, New Jersey, New York, Edmonton, Alberta, Calgary, Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.